Hi, I'm Patrick Prince with the Tulsa World, joined by Kelly Hines, our University of Tulsa beat writer. And this is our weekly chat on TU Sports. We're filming a video here Friday afternoon. We'll also convert this into a podcast. So if you'd rather listen rather than watch, you have that option. And Kelly, hopefully this one will actually see the light of day, unlike our conversation last Friday, when literally we got done filming and turned the laptops off, and Jaxon Player announced he was going to the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and we talked at length about how, I didn't think that was happening because of what he had said the previous day. And I'm not blaming him for his decision or anything. And maybe I just misinterpreted what he said the previous day when he said, year 5 on the way. I just assumed that meant year 5 at TU. And maybe that's not what he meant. Maybe he had a change of heart. You're certainly entitled to, change your mind. But yeah, that certainly changed, the complexion of what TU is going to look like next season. But for him, I really thought he would go from TU to the NFL like Zaven Collins and Travis Gibson and, and Reggie Robinson. I just thought that was going to be the step for him. But, I'm guessing he just felt like he needed to do something somewhere else to show that he could, compete at that next level. So, he's identified his 5 finalists. OU and OSU are among them. I think both of those would be a great fit for him. Really, I think he could step in anywhere and be a starter and be extremely disruptive, just as much as he was at Tulsa. But TCU is another one of his finalists, and that's where Joseph Gillespie is now. So that would make sense. Baylor is, that he's from Waco, so that would be an opportunity for him to go back home. And then Arkansas is the other one. So I felt like those were 5 really good options. And he's a guy who was overlooked coming out of high school, and that's how he wound up at TU, and obviously did really good things during his time with the Hurricane. And it's always kind of like bittersweet for me to see guys move on, because he was so fun to cover, not just because of his ability. He just carried himself with so much confidence, and that was really refreshing. I mean, I don't know many players who, have like a bedazzled necklace of like their jersey number. They just like wear that all the time. Like he just had a really fun personality, and I think he'll have success wherever he goes. But definitely a big loss for TU. I don't know if they were preparing to have him back or expecting this. It's just, regardless of the situation, that's someone who is basically impossible to replace. I mean, he was fighting double teams on every play and was still, so disruptive. And, to get 15 TFLs in a season when everyone knows you're the best player on the field. Like, I mean, certainly on the defensive side, like he was a lot for other teams to try to deal with. And he still was able to just make incredible plays on a consistent basis, and especially rose to the occasion in big games against, really good teams.
Staying on the defensive side of the ball for a second, I wanted to ask you about Owen Ostroski. He obviously had, a career at Holland Hall that we wrote extensively about, big time recruit, appeared in 4 games for TU. What do you see for him going into next year?
I thought that like the way the season played out with him, getting to see playing time, as the season wore on, I felt like that was a really good introduction to college football for him. He was used on special teams, but he's also, found ways on the field in other ways, found completely messed it up. He was able to get onto the field in other ways because he just brings a lot to the table. But, he has so much potential, and you could tell that, he is not that far off from being able to make an impact at the college football level. I mean, you have to think about, because of COVID, all of these players have the opportunity to extend their careers by another year. I mean, I'm guessing Owen is like 18, 19, and he still was able to, get onto the field and, made some plays despite going up against guys who are like, 5-6 years older than him. So I think the ceiling is super high for him. I know they're very excited about his potential. He, plays a position that, there was some depth there this year. So it wasn't needed for him to play as a true freshman, but I definitely feel like he's going to move into the rotation starting next season.
Let's shift gears and go to basketball a little bit. So the game on Saturday at UCF called off, and TU has postponed basketball activities. You wrote that a couple days ago. Any update on that? Where are we going from here? Any idea?
I believe the activities are still paused. That means they're not practicing as a team. Guys who aren't in quarantine or haven't tested positive, they can work out on their own or do their individual things. But I can't decide if this is a good or a bad thing that the pause is happening right now. It's been a difficult start to conference play. The losses against SMU and Memphis, those were games that I guess you could define as like winnable, that just, coming back from deficits and just not really having the production that you need late in the game to win those. I feel like that's just a recurring theme for this team. And, I don't know that's a bad thing that they're on pause because, maybe you can regroup from that with like a renewed energy or focus or something that might not have been there otherwise. But at the same time, you have games coming pretty quickly after this one. So starting with Wednesday at home against Temple, that's a game that, certainly is in danger of being postponed. You just don't want to have too many of these postponements because then that will lead to cancellations because there just won't be time to make them up. So I don't know. I know we're to January, but it's still hard to kind of figure out what this team is going to look like. Offensively, you need production from more guys than Jariah Horn and Sam Griffin, and if you're not able to get that on a consistent basis or in key moments in games, it's going to be a struggle. I think the American is really difficult. I mean, SMU had won 8 in a row and then got thumped at Cincinnati last night. I mean, like by like 20 points. I mean, it's going to be a battle every single game in this league. And this month, the schedule is really difficult. So I don't really know what the solution is, especially if you're on pause. It's hard to figure things out, but maybe when you come back from it, something will click.
This is a little different for you because it's part of your job and you cover it, and so you sort of have to follow it, at a certain level. But I'm having a hard time getting into basketball season this year, and I don't really know why. Like,
It's hard though. I mean, especially I think it's difficult when there's so few, I think, like really dominant programs. And, I'm an AP voter again this year, so I have to pay attention to things nationally more than, usual. But even that's really difficult. I feel like, I love college basketball so much, but it's just really different going from football season to basketball season because football season, you're just, especially covering TU, I mean, it's so dramatic and interesting. And, there are just these big moments in games and it's, the stories write themselves because it's just, you just focus on the big plays. And then it's, I don't want to call it a letdown because I still love basketball season, but it's just harder to get really excited about it, like on an every game basis, because there are more games and there just aren't as many big moments in games. And, sometimes teams have these long lulls that are kind of painful to watch, not mentioning any teams, but, it makes it harder to really just, I don't know. That sounds critical, but I feel you because it's just because college football season is not quite over. There's still the distraction of, those games and those storylines. And I think once that passes, we'll see, the college basketball games have, they will start to take on a bigger meaning just because it'll get deeper into the season. And, you start to realize how important every game is. Right now, it's like, oh, they dropped that game. Well, they still have, 2 months left in the season. Like, it's actually like, I think we're at like the midpoint of the season and it just doesn't feel like that yet because the football season just goes on so long.
Yeah, I meant to ask you, and I didn't in some of our previous videos, if you were voting this year. So you are voting.
I am voting.
All right.
It's a privilege, and I try to remind myself of that every single week. It's really difficult, especially when so many games have been postponed or canceled. And so you'll have, I mean, I think last week, I don't remember how many, but quite a few teams didn't play. I mean, I understand there were the holidays too, and there aren't as many games during a holiday week, but when teams aren't playing, you don't really know what to do with them. It's not like you can compare results. I mean, they just don't have any results. So I like the challenge of it. But you know, the ballots are due like first thing Monday, and like oftentimes there are games on Sunday night, and it's a little bit tricky. I don't think that people realize like how much like really goes into it. And I'm not like trying to get like a medal or anything, but it's a lot of work. And I take it probably too seriously, like I do with everything else. But I had been a voter previously and took a few years off from it, and they asked me again. I mean, they're trying to have a little bit more diversity with the voters, and I definitely support that mission. So that's how they hooked me this time. At one point I was the only female voter, and I'm really glad to say that I'm not the only female voter now, but there are not many of us. So I will continue to do it, probably indefinitely. It's great. I love it. So much fun.
Is there just a touch of sarcasm there from you?
It's a privilege.
No, I hear. You're right. It's fun and you enjoy it, but it's hard. It's not easy. And yeah. I'm glad you get to do it, and I just get to ask you about it. Let's put it that way.
That's great.
Okay, random question. Is there any dialogue between voters? Like, do you guys discuss things ever? Like, even if it's as simple as exchanging an email, or do you literally just send in your votes and that's it?
Not, I mean, maybe other people do. I know whenever I first like started as a voter, when I voted previously, I kind of like asked people like what their approach was with it. Because some people have like, I mean, it's like a, you know, I know one guy has like a formula that he uses, and I'm like, well, that seems really involved. Anything involving math, I'm pretty much going to be out at that point. But just, you know, I kind of talk to different people about like, you know, the best, you know, approach to it. But really not other than that. Sometimes I do look at, you know, I follow some people who tweet their ballot. I don't do that because I don't know that people are that into like my ballot, but sometimes I'll see like what other people do. And I definitely like try to follow like, you know, Jeff Goodman is like such an expert on everything that's going on. I really respect like how he evaluates teams. And so and Seth Davis. So I look at, you know, what they're thinking, and, you know, it doesn't really influence me, but I mostly just go based on my previous ballot or the previous poll. You know, it's not like you're starting from scratch every week. Oh, who was the best this week? Like, you know, probably the teams in your top 10 are going to be near the top if they won. So I think most people follow that same sort of template. But, you know, they kind of just tell you, you know, just however you think is the best way to do it, like, go for it.
Okay, final thing I'll ask you about this week. Former Jinx standout receiver Isaiah Epps announced he's going to Tulsa. You wrote about it. You lost a couple receivers, so good thing for TU.
Oh, I think that's a great thing for TU. I mean, to have someone who not only has, you know, had success in his college career, but to come back home and play, you know, his last season here. I just think that was like such a good fit, you know, especially with it being a position of need for TU, with, you know, the departures of, you know, Josh Johnson moved on to the NFL. Ezra Naylor II has now decided to move on to the NFL. Sam Crawford Jr. transferred to Rice. I mean, obviously they were prepared to lose some of those guys. That's why they signed 4 wide receivers last month. But to get a guy like that who, I mean, he set a receiving record at Jinx. Are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy. It's so hard to set records at Jinx. Like, I mean, they've had so much talent through the years, so many good teams. And to be able to do that, I mean, 1,200 yards in a season, obviously he did really good things there, but he played in a lot of games at Kentucky, and to bring that experience to TU, and, he'll have a chance to, like, he'll definitely be in there. Oh, we have a cat sighting. Okay. We almost made it. We were so
we almost made it. Almost.
We were so close. If I just would not talk so much, we wouldn't have had it. Oh, see, can you be cute? Not really. No. Okay.
Yeah. Camera shy. We'll work on it.
A little, and just shy in general, maybe. But I think that is such a great fit. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. So I know that his whole family is really excited to have him conclude his career at TU. And that's, I don't always love the transfer portal. It gives and it takes, but in this case, it's definitely giving. And I think that especially for grad transfers, to be able to, finish your career somewhere after you've graduated, I think that's what it was intended for. So to see it happen that way, all for it.
Yeah. All right, Kelly, appreciate the chat as always. Have a good weekend. We'll catch up next week.
All right, I'll see you.